Hi and welcome back to Bike Speed. So this week, as you see, we're doing something a little bit unusual. This week is a little frequently asked questions video. It's been a funny week in the UK. It's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. As part of the celebrations, they gave us 2 bank holidays. And because of that loss of the bank holiday days, in the shop, I have been absolutely flat out. We couldn't really have stopped to have given you a video this week. This week, we're doing the frequently asked questions. So I've got my phone in front of me. I'm going to read them off. These are ones we've been keeping a note of these because we actually thought at one point in the future, we expect to be a long way in the future, we may have to do this one week where we, for whatever reason, couldn't film. We're going to read them off. The first one is, why didn't you this? Why didn't you that? Why didn't you service the forks? Why didn't you do the bottom bracket? What you have to remember is all these bikes prior to filming, we kind of, when a customer's in and I'm assessing a bike, I'll look over it, I'll check the headset, I'll check the bottom bracket, I'll do all that while the customer's there. I'll write down a few little notes, I'll price the job up, and then that's up to the customer. And so often the bikes you see on film, we've already checked the feeling, and you get a lot of experience when you're doing bikes all day long. And as any bike shop, not just me, any bike shop, when you're doing a bike all day long, you get to feel when a bearing's dry, so you know whether it needs lubricating. You get to feel whether a bearing's worn, so you get to know whether to replace it. A lot of it's done by feel, and you just instinctively know, and you just get that feeling for the work. So the other thing you have to remember is that when we're sort of weighing up which bikes to use for a YouTube video, a job can actually be too involved to bring you to YouTube, because typically it takes me around about 3 times the length of time to do a bike that we're filming. So if I know a bike's going to take me 2 to 3 hours, I know that for YouTube that's 6 to 8 hours, 9 hours, even a day or two to bring it to you on YouTube. Some jobs are just too involved to actually film. So we're trying to do this commercially. We are a shop, so we've got to also earn a little bit of money out of these bikes. So if we end up spending 2 or 3 days just filming for you, not only do I get a backlog of work, that bike then becomes non-profitable, and it just isn't worth our while to do certain jobs on camera. That's why sometimes we don't do things that you would maybe expect we should do, but actually we've either already done them or we haven't got the time to film them. Now this one comes up almost every video where we use it. What size is your ultrasonic cleaner? What's in your ultrasonic cleaner? How hot do you have it, etc. We've actually got 3 cleaners. The one you see on video, which is obviously on our bench, is a 6-litre ultrasonic cleaner. You can use that for pretty much anything on a bike. That's why we tend to use it mostly in the videos. In our early videos, we were actually using I think a 3.5-litre one, a slightly smaller one for the videos. We actually blew that up one night. We left some bits in it to clean overnight, and we literally turned the lights off, and as we turned the lights off, there was a pop on the bench and a trickling sound. And fortunately for us, literally as we were going out the door, the base of the ultrasonic cleaner blew a hole in itself, and the fluid was pouring out all over the bench. So if we'd been out of the shop, heaven knows what would happen. That would have left a big old mess for us to clean up the next day. But anyway, currently it's a 6-litre ultrasonic cleaner, and we use a water-based, water-soluble degreaser. So when you say water-soluble, it's a neat liquid we put in, and then you wash it off with water. So the soluble bit comes that it will wash off. So you do not mix it. We change that quite regularly, especially if we're doing a film where we think it would benefit you to see that sort of agitation and dirt coming out of the part. We'll change it for that. And so, bearing in mind we're using that cleaner day in, day out. It's on all the time. And we change that fluid probably once a month, maybe sooner, but it's typically for us once a month. And when it comes to temperature, a lot of parts in the bike world are anodized. So a lot of your black and greys and everything else are anodized aluminiums or anodized steels of some description, where they have a coating put on them. Just literally cold in, put those parts in, degrease them, wash them off straight away, and you should have no problems at all. So let's have a little look here. Yeah, this is a good question actually. Where can I find the torque settings for the components? I always talk about my torque settings and torque wrench and everything else. Right, there's 3 ways the torque settings. Number 1, most components, so like your stems, your seat post, your chain set on Shimano, things like that, most of those will actually have the torque wrench setting printed on them. They'll just say 5 nm, 5 newton meters, or 6 nm, 6 newton meters. What you're trying to do when you torque a bolt is the thread that it's going into, you actually effectively just stretch that bolt with the torque, which grips the threads to stop it coming undone, and that's what you're doing. So if you over tight it, you can pull those threads straight out, which is quite common to see threads that have chewed right out, especially if you're putting stainless steel into aluminium, which is softer. It'll pull the threads through. So that's why you should always torque your components. So parts have the torque wrench written on them. That's the first way you find it out. The second way is, especially with Shimano, they're great. Pretty much all the Shimano range have the component number written on them somewhere. So you find that component number, bung it into Google. Google is your friend, definitely with bike repairs, and you'll usually find, and up will come a PDF file from Shimano themselves, and it will have all the torque wrenches of that component. It's usually a stripped down diagram with all the little torque settings arrowed off of it, and that's a great way to get them. Some are pretty standard. Most cassettes are 40 newton meters. It's things like that, you get them in your head, and that of course is the third way of knowing your torque wrench settings. Gradually they clock into your head. You begin to know that certain size bolts, M4, M5, M6 all have generally the same kind of torque wrench setting, because they're generally going into the same kind of threads. And now it's very rare really for me to search one. It's only if it's a component that I've maybe not dealt with before. Another question we get is, does T-Cut make shiny matte paint? Now what you have to remember with T-Cut is that it's not a cutting compound. T-Cut will only remove the road film. But when I'm doing a matte bike, I don't push quite as hard. I just a little bit gentler, just to remove the road film, the grime that builds up in that paint. And then when you buff it off, you should still be left with your matte finish to the bike, and it won't shine up the bike. Now this is another question. Actually, I've been asked this quite a lot from our contact form on our website, and that's people contacting me, asking me. We did a video where we showed custom made saddlebags, which I make myself. And what I do is I make them to fit the specific tools that someone wants to carry on their bike. And I often get messages. I always actually decline those. And the reason I do that is I have to have the bike in front of me to make those custom bags. Saddle rails can be a slightly different spot on the seat post, so that determines how long the saddle rails are. The seat post can be different lengths depending on the height of the rider and where they ride on their frame. And of course, everything in that saddlebag is different from person to person. We all build up our little toolkit that we'd like to carry on our bike. So those bags are made very much custom. So they're not something that I can just produce and sell. There's plenty of manufacturers out there producing the saddlebags of various different sizes, and they suit most applications, but very occasionally you want that precise, very small, very compact bag to fit specifically your bike, and that's what we do at Bike Speeds. But that is very much an in-house process, and very much a process where I can't do it mail order. I have to have the bike in front of me to deal with that. So sorry if you're one of those people who have asked me for a custom saddlebag, and so that's that addressed. Yeah, this is another good question actually, and it leads on to the next question as well. And it's you should have replaced. We often say, you should have replaced the whatever bolts. You should have replaced this. You should have replaced that. What you have to remember is we are primarily a business. We are a shop that are just producing new YouTube content. All these bikes are done to a budget. Customer will come in, standard service price, extra bits for chains, cables, handlebar tapes, bearings, they're all added up at the time of quoting the customer. If it was my own bike and I had a rusty bolt, it would be replaced, no questions asked, put out a new one in. People say, yeah, but they're only a couple of pence or whatever. But what you have to remember is all the components and everything we put on a bike all add up. All the grease we use, all the oils we use, cables, outers, clips, all sorts of things are all gradually adding on to that price, reducing your profit margins. And it's very, very hard for me to stop. And at some point I have to stop. So sometimes there is just not enough profit, and everybody's price conscious. They'll compare your service costs with the bloke down the road, and if you're £2 or £3 dearer, that will be enough to make them go down the road. So we don't want that to happen. We want to keep all the customers. We will only replace parts like that if they're absolutely necessary. Now this is a great question, and it's something that in the comments, the comment we get, you'll see it on almost every video, and certainly this week I've seen it 2 or 3 times as well, is how much does it cost? How much is a service like this? How much does it cost to strip a bike like that down? How much was that restoration? It's a valid question, but there's a reason why we always ignore it. And that is that every bike is different. We have a standard price for servicing, but then the bearings may be different prices. The bearing on the bike may be a different bearing. There's different grades of components, Shimano 105, Dura-Ace, whatever it be. The price fluctuations there are so vast that we couldn't really tell you the price because your bike may be completely different. And the other thing which we also discussed, and actually Simon said this, and I was like, yeah, you're right. But by the way, Simon films all these videos, edits them all, spends way longer on getting you these videos than I do. Simon's my son, by the way, so when I mention Simon, that's who that is. But he said, and it was a very valid point, that as like a face of the industry in the sense of the YouTube, we have sort of a moral obligation to the industry as a whole not to reveal our prices, because if a business has got maybe a large unit somewhere, you know, that's costing them tens of thousands of pounds a month to operate, you know, with staff and mechanics and front of house staff and accountants and, you know, all the staffing costs that go with that, their price is going to be wildly different to me as a small business. It's just me and Simon. So we never actually tell you the price of any of the work we do. We've also, you know, all these are customers' bikes as well. It would be unfair on them to tell their friends in the club how much they've just paid to have their bike serviced as well. You know, it's just unfair in every aspect. So we will never publish what we are charging for a bike that you see on YouTube. And I hope you understand that. And now I've given the reasons why, I'm sure you will understand. So yeah, that's important just to, you know, that's why anyway. Right, and then the last question we got to address today, that you'd love to see the customer's face and reaction to a bike that we've serviced. You have to remember that the videos that we bring you, most of the bikes that we show on video, we've actually kind of pre-arranged. They're usually from customers that are very good customers. A lot of them are good customers. I'll say to them, you know, can I just borrow your bike for 2 or 3 days and we'll do a YouTube video? And they're, oh yeah, I love a YouTube video. So most of them are actually very, very good customers already. So they already know the level of service that we provide and offer. So they're actually never surprised when a bike comes back clean, because they've been using me for a few years and they already know I'm going to clean the bike. They're just like, oh, thank you very much, and look forward to the video type of thing. So yeah, in terms of filming customers' reactions, I think you'd be disappointed. I know that they're pleased because they come back. So that's why we never video a customer reaction. So anyway, there are a few of the frequently asked questions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We'll be back with some bikes next week. And if you have enjoyed this style of video and you want to hear us talking about anything else, then as always, drop a comment in the comments below. Remember, they help the algorithms. So comment on our videos, like our videos, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If this is your first video, check out all the other videos. Don't forget, we're also on Instagram and Facebook. Just search Bike Speeds on either. Once again, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.